Hello everyone, welcome back to Being the Marshmallow, Living and Coping with PTSD. I am, as always, Bob Wagner. Now, before I get into this week's entry, I want to give the viewers a bit of a heads up, some kind of informed consent, if you will. This post is going to cover some pretty intense and somewhat controversial subjects. So if you are not in a mood to deal with something kind of intense and somewhat controversial regarding LGBQT rights, maybe you might want to take this opportunity to go watch cat videos or, robot chicken outtakes or whatever, okay? And to give you that opportunity, me and Pete here are going to give you about a 30-second musical number to make up your mind. And away we go. Manamana, do 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 do. Manamana, do 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 do. Manamana, do 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 do. Do 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 do. Manamana, na 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 na. Manamana, na na na. Manamana, manamana, manamana. Do 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 do. Manamana. And that was Pete. And on that note, you've obviously decided to stick around, and so I want to talk about this week's subject for those of you who are still watching. Just a little heads up, this post is going to get a bit political, okay? It was never my intention to do a political blog like anybody else. I've got plenty to say on politics and a wide range of subjects, but this is supposed to be very, very specifically a mental health blog. Mental health related issues. Unfortunately, something came to my attention at about 7:30 this morning that dragged it into the sphere of this blog, okay? Many of you are probably aware of this Tennesse so-called religious freedom bill, which has been very much in the news and very much on social media of late, which essentially makes it legal to deny various services to members of the gay, lesbian, bi, trans community, okay? And I have some very powerful opinions on the subject of anti-gay discrimination, but I was going to keep my mouth shut, at least on this blog, because it's a political matter. The problem is that one aspect of the bill makes it legal to discriminate, to deny gays and lesbians psychological treatment on the basis of sincerely held religious belief. And that makes it a mental health issue, and that makes it relevant to this blog, okay? So before we go any further, I'm going to run some facts by you, okay? First off, the bill, as I said, allows discrimination on the basis of religious principle. It was sponsored by Tennessee Republican Representative Dan Howell. The bill allows refusal of service by therapists for members of the LGBQT community on the basis of sincerely held religious belief or principle. The bill passed 68 to 22 in favor and is currently awaiting final signatory approval by Tennessee Governor Bill Haslam. This is all according to Reuters.com, very reputable source. Now, let's talk about why mental health care is so important to members of the LGBTQT community, okay? According to one of the suicide information sites that I was able to track down, and these numbers were consistent across about a half a dozen different sites that I tracked down all before 9 o'clock in the morning, here's the following facts, the following statistics. First off, suicide is the leading cause of death among gay and lesbian youth nationally across the United States, okay? 30% of gay youth attempt suicide near the age of 15. Gay and lesbians are 2 to 6 times more likely to commit suicide than heterosexuals. Almost half of the gays and of the gay and lesbian teens state they have attempted suicide more than once, all right? More than one time, they tried to kill themselves. And finally, it has been conservatively estimated that 1,500 gay and lesbian youth commit suicide every single year in the United States. So, just so we're clear, okay, one dead heterosexual person who killed themselves Can you see that? 5 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dead gay and lesbian people who killed themselves. 1, 5. Okay? That's the numbers. That's the math. Now, that makes this not a political matter, not a religious matter. It makes it a mental health matter. In fact, it makes it a mental health crisis. Okay? Gays and lesbians have a need, a legitimate, sincere need for counseling for mental health disorders. They suffer from depression, they suffer from self-esteem issues, they suffer from self-loathing, they suffer from some very serious, and in many cases, PTSD if they were assaulted or kicked out of the home or whatever, or otherwise traumatized as a result of their sexual orientation, okay? And they are stacking up bodies like cordwood because of this systemic social discrimination that they experience, this attack on their core personhood, okay? This is a mental health crisis in this country. And when you assume the mantle of a mental health care provider, you are taking an oath. You are making a commitment to put aside your own personal politics, to put aside your own personal religious beliefs, and focus on one thing and one thing only, on healing the hurt and curing the sick, okay? In that respect, you are no materially different than an ER doctor who spends their days setting broken bones and stitching up gunshot wounds, all right? And you do not have the moral right to say that my version of the divine says that I cannot fulfill my oath to treat you and help you better cope with your medical condition. You don't have that right. If that is what you want to do, pick a different line of work. Go sell used cars for a living, okay? Now, some of you may be thinking, well, you know, Bob, you are obviously very passionately pro-gay and lesbian rights, so you've never run into this situation, okay? And you're wrong. I have run into something very, very similar to this in my own time. I live in the state of Minnesota, and a few years ago, we here in Minnesota, back before it became a nationally recognized universal right, we were debating whether or not to legalize gay marriage. Ultimately, of course, we did, and we were a couple of years ahead of the national curve on that respect. And one day, I was working at a store, and my boss at the time was a openly gay man who was and remains, as I make this video, a very dear, close, personal friend. Wonderful, warm human being, terrific guy. And this lady comes in, and she is wearing a pin that speaks out against marriage equality. She is wearing a pin that says that my boss and my friend, a guy who had talked me down off of a couple of really bad PTSD episodes while at work, did not deserve the same right to marry his fiancée as I take for granted as a straight man marrying my wife, okay? And here's the thing. I found that personally offensive. I found it morally repugnant, and I actually found it a violation of my sincerely held religious principles. I am a member of the Wiccan faith, okay? This is my pentacle. This is the symbol of my faith. It's got a 5-pointed star inside of a circle with a silver stag's head in it. It's a representative of a religion to which I have belonged since about 20-odd years now. And one of the things in our religion is something called the Charge of the Goddess, which is kind of a list of bullet points about what the female aspect of the divine holds to be true and expects from us, okay? And it says, in part, all aspects All acts of love and pleasure are my rituals, okay? What this means is that in the eyes of the female aspect of the divine, consenting, loving, gay love is as sacred a right and is as blessed in the eyes of the Most High as anything that two heterosexuals do within the boundaries of a mutually consenting, mutually enjoyable relationship, okay? And so this woman comes in, she's got this button on, and she is expressing a view that I find politically repugnant, personally repugnant, and morally and religiously repugnant. And I shut my mouth, did not confront her on it. I did my job. I served her. I thanked her for her business, and I wished her a good day, even though I'm standing there feeling, just by being in her presence, like I want to go and take a shower. Okay? I did my job, because that is what you do. You put these things aside and you behave as an adult. All right? And this is vastly more true in the case of mental health care providers than it can ever be in what I do for a living, because nobody ever died for want of a clean vacuum cleaner or some fresh vacuum cleaner bags. Nobody has ever gone out back and put a gun to their head and blown their brains out because they didn't get their vacuum cleaner fixed. Okay? But people do that because they have not received the care they need for their mental illness. Okay? And at a ratio of 5 or 6 to 1, the gays and the lesbians are doing it. Okay? So this is not a political matter. This is a mental health matter. If you are a mental health care provider, you have a choice to make. You can either choose to uphold your oath, and you can serve your patients, and you can heal them, and you can provide them with the care that you swore to provide them with, or you can go sell shoes for a living. All right? And this is not a matter of religious discrimination or a First Amendment issue. The First Amendment says that you don't get to lock somebody in jail because they're a Jew or a Catholic or a Muslim, okay? That is what the First Amendment means. You are not being discriminated against because you are obliged to do your job, okay? That's called doing your job and doing what you get paid to do. Simple. And if you sincerely feel that you can't do that, then you have to take a look at what's more important, all right? Because at the end of the day, people are dying. People are in pain. They are suffering. They have a right to care. They have a right to compassion. I don't care how you feel about gay rights. I don't care about that. These are human beings with a medical condition, and they are suffering, and they are hurting, and they are dying in droves. All right? It is 2016, ladies and gentlemen, not 1620. Grow up.